All right, guys, welcome to our second lecture in our new class on managing sport organizations. What we're going to talk about today is developing culture in an organization. And this is something that I really, really like, enjoy discussing. And it's something I think that people on the front lines as day-to-day managers, administrators, this is a key part of their job. So, um, what I'm going to speak about comes from this book, Culture Code. And I highly recommend that you guys get this book and read it. Basically, what this guy did is he went and studied the most successful cultures in the world, from places like Google to Pixar to the Navy SEALs to the San Antonio Spurs, and he basically condensed it into what all those great cultures have in common. And so this is going to be a kind of a three-step process. The first step is to having a great culture is you have to build safety. People in your group, people who work with you, have to feel that they're connected, that they're safe to speak what they want to speak, and that they're connected. It has a connected feel. Some people might describe it as that the group has chemistry. You maybe have been on a team like that. Another way is to describe it is that there's a sense of belonging. And so it leads to this question of how do you build belonging? And there's a couple of things, we have to figure out as a group member how we're going to solve hard issues, hard problems, give hard feedback, tell the truth without causing dissent or disappointment. So there's the idea of this magical feedback, and I started using this, and it works really, really well. It's a great way to give feedback to somebody without hurting their feelings. And it's this idea that I'm giving you these comments because I have high expectations, and I know that you can reach them. And so some ways to kind of give this feedback, these type of belonging cues, is we want to have personal kind of up close connection. I know that's not supposed to happen in the world we're living in right at the moment, but our body language says a lot. We want to be relentless with our coaching and our feedback, and let these people know they're working with them, that we care about them, but we have high standards. And then we want to talk about things other than what we're working on. Okay, so we want to have a big picture kind of perspective. Kind of an example talk about this is that the San Antonio Spurs, a lot of times Greg Popovich will have discussions about politics, about history, things much bigger than basketball. And I think sometimes we have to have these big discussions with our teams, with our groups, with our organizations at the same time. Some ideas for building this safety, this belonging within a group is that the leader of that group has to show fallibility. Okay, you want to overdo the thank yous. You want to make sure everyone has a voice. We don't want to give sandwich feedback, and what that means is something bad followed by something good followed by something bad. Okay, and we want to embrace having fun. People have to feel like they're safe to speak their mind, to give their ideas in our group, in our organizations. The second step is we have to share vulnerability. So what this basically means is that there's kind of a trust, there's an exchange of openness. So in a group setting, we have to kind of send these real clear signals that we have weaknesses and we need help. Okay, that we have to model that we have insecurities, and then people will start trusting each other and they'll get to work. When there's no vulnerability, people try to cover up their weaknesses, and you start to have these insecurities that come out, and you don't get the best out of everybody that you're working with. And it's contagious. and it doesn't come after trust, it precedes it. Okay, so basically it's kind of like you have to train this to make it happen. And once you get people to work like this and feel vulnerable and that's okay, then you start to get the best out of everybody in that group. So the Navy SEALs, they have some rules for vulnerability. Always check your impulses. Your prime responsibility is to support. Work at the top of your brains at all times. Trust your fellow teammates to support you and listen. So part of this, building this vulnerability and cooperation, is important. So Pixar, who you've watched tons of their movies like Toy Story, Up, things like that, every one of their movies are brain trusted, which means they bring together a lot of people into a room, and they screen the movie and they just offer real, just open, raw feedback. Okay, of what's good, what's bad about the movie. The Navy SEALs, they have AARs, which after each of their missions, they have these short meetings where they discuss what happened in those missions. And they're not led by the leaders, they're led by enlisted people. And it's a way for them to hold accountability into what everybody did during that mission. So some ideas for building this vulnerability. You have to make sure the leader is the one who's vulnerable first and is vulnerable the most often. We want to deliver the negative stuff in person. Okay, and when we're having conversations, we want to resist trying to add value. In other words, shut up and listen. Use practices like those brain trusts and AARs. And we want to embrace discomfort. Okay, because if we're growing and we're doing the things that we want to do in our organizations and making those tough decisions, there's going to be discomfort in that. And then this third step in building a great culture is to establish purpose. We have to know what we're working toward. Okay, it's a shared goal. And, the successful cultures are always seeking ways to tell what's their story, what's their mission story. So we want to build these high purpose environments, and these are things that are kind of filled with these little small but very distinct moments that link the present to the future. Okay, basically it's a process where we constantly say, here's where we are and here's where we want to go. And people want to know why they're working. What are we aiming for? I know we've all been there where we've wondered, what are we doing? And we have to have these constantly. And so it's much more than having a mission statement. It's not just that. It's a process of trying to do things and failing doing things and reflecting on them and learning from them. And these successful cultures, they kind of crystallize their purpose. Their leaders reflect on the failures. They express gratitude for those failing moments. Okay, and it helps the group discover really where we could go, what's really possible. And so this leading or managing in this high purpose type environment is, if you want to grow, you have to name your priorities first. What are our priorities of what we're trying to get done? We also have to name what are the behaviors that support these priorities. You can use catchphrases to link these two. But we want to create these vivid ways of behaviors that we expect. So the New Zealand All Blacks is a rugby team, which is most of the time voted as the most successful culture in the world, one of the most successful organizations in the world. They use catchphrases like leave the jersey better in a better place. If you're not growing anywhere, you're not going anywhere. Pressure is a privilege. It's an honor, not a job. Better people make better All Blacks. And so these are just there are ways of developing the behaviors that they want out of their organization. So some ideas for establishing purpose: name and rank your priorities. Be 10 times as clear about your priorities as you think you should be. Figure out where your group aims for proficiency and where it aims for creativity. Those are two different things. Proficiency is being consistent in a task and doing that task over and over correctly. Creativity is experimenting with new ways to do things. Embrace the use of catchphrases, and you want to measure what really matters to you. Don't measure stuff that doesn't. So guys, I hope that kind of gives you an insight into the culture. You're going to take a culture quiz this week for your organization, and we're going to reflect kind of on where we are as a culture within our organization.